OK, Nige, point taken.
Billy responded,
I'm always up for the odd OBE here and there.
and everybody laughed.
Anyway, look, it's Wednesday tomorrow, and I suggest we concentrate our minds on the task ahead. We've seen some pretty strange things in the last month or so, and I think it's going to get even stranger.
Nigel reminded the group. Everyone agreed and retired for the night. Lying on his own in the moonlight, Nigel reflected on his early childhood and later teen years. In school, he was always ahead of the class, and sometimes even his teacher, but for some strange reason he kept his knowledge bottled up, and would always appear to be a slightly below average student, which was not the case. His appearance made him stand out, but his lack of confidence made him disappear into a twilight world until his three friends came along and built him up so that he was able to adapt to the rigours of conformity. Something nagged at him though, telling him he was different, and as the years went by he grew to accept the fact that he would never find out why. The feelings grew again inside him as he lay in the darkness, a sense of foreboding coming over him. Thursday. It had finally arrived, the day that so many questions would be answered. Who would win the Aussies? Where would they end up? Could Nigel and his friends prevent the biggest sporting robbery since the World Cup was lost and retrieved by a dog called Pickles? Even though Nigel loved cricket so much, he knew that it would take second place today. Everybody had assembled at 8 a.m. and the final details of strategy were sorted out. Billy and Buddy, equipped with mobiles, had the task of finding out how many accomplices Pick and his family had. Nigel and Jim would take up residence close to the main exit and wait for the brothers to signal. It was assumed that the switch would take place sooner rather than later because the person detailed to do the engraving would only be called later when the match was drawing to a result. At 9 a.m. they set off and nobody spoke much. All that could be heard was Jim chomping away on a packet of crisps. They arrived at 11 a.m, half an hour before play was due to start, and Buddy and Billy immediately made their way to the long room under the guise of the press. Nigel had taken two badges from the office and with a small picture of the twins took up a position where they could detect any movement towards the trophy area. Below them were seated different groups of commentators from radio and TV together, with a gaggle of cameramen so nobody gave them a second look. England came out to bat and the game was underway. After about an hour Billy glanced at the trophy cabinet and saw two security guards looking to and fro. One was on a mobile and the other was holding something. Billy motioned to Buddy and he looked up. These two characters are behaving oddly, and one has a package in his hand. Look, they're on the move. Wait here, Buddy said. With that he was off through the glass door and at a safe distance followed the two men down a corridor until they stopped at a door with a sign above it saying Gentlemen's Toilets. They both went in and someone came out. Buddy waited a few seconds and went in. They were both at the urinals and he slipped into a cubicle. Second guessing the next move, he positioned himself on the toilet seat so that his feet could not be seen under the door. They did indeed check the cubicles, and after what seemed an age to Buddy, an Aussie voice said,
Yeah, Pick, we're in position and the switch will be made shortly. We'll meet outside the main entrance. Where's the destination? Bungay? Right, we'll follow you.
After a few seconds, Buddy heard the door slam and quietly unlocked the cubicle and peered out. He went to the exit and looking out saw the two men disappearing down the corridor. On his mobile, Buddy spoke to Billy. The two guards are coming towards you, low profile. They are going to make the switch, and I'm going to find Nige and Jim. Join us at the entrance.
Okay, I'll make the switch first.
Billy replied. After a few minutes negotiating the crowd, Buddy saw Jim. He could spot his bulky frame a mile off. Where's Nige? He inquired.
He's over there.
Jim pointed. They made their way to Nigel. You've made the switch. Billy is just checking, and he'll join us to confirm shortly, Buddy said in a low voice. There's two of them, and they're dressed as security guards, and they'll be in two cars with Pitt and his crew. And guess where they are going? Bungay.
What?
Stuttered Nigel.
This is getting weirder and weirder.
After a while, Billy joined them.
They made the switch and they're moving towards the entrance. Look, there they are.
And he pointed in their direction.
Look out for the Pick clan before we can make a move,
warned Nigel. It was the lunch interval, and the crowd was milling around, making it easier for the friends not to be seen as they made to exit the ground.
There they are,
said Nigel.
Making for the car park. Hold back a minute. We know where they're going. We'll follow at a safe distance.
The chase was on, and Nigel, at 100 yards or so behind, tracked the two cars in front.
We'll have to be careful when we get into the country, Nige,
said Billy.
We won't have much cover.
Where do we pass through to get to Bungay?
Nigel replied with a confident air.
Geldeston,
Billy replied.
And what are these?
Nigel postured, holding up a set of keys.
They are the keys to Ned's car, which is parked in Geldeston. We simply switch cars to avoid any suspicion. You're like James Bond.
Jim purred.
Yeah, and you're like Miss Moneypenny,
responded Billy. Nigel laughed. Entering Geldeston, and with Pick's gang about half a mile ahead, Nigel located Ned's car outside the post office. Geldeston was a rural area with two pubs and one store, and the post office. It was an idyllic place, with not much going on, but that would all change soon. Nigel's group changed cars and resumed the chase. It was early evening now, and the sun was slowly waning, giving off one of these spectacular sunsets so familiar to the fenlands. In the fields all manner of wildlife were in motion, ducks, geese, pheasant, badgers, etc., all common to the countryside. They all passed unnoticed to Nigel's group, so intent on their prey were they. By the time they reached Bungay, the sun had dipped even further in the sky, and it was getting quite dark. Up ahead, the two cars had stopped outside a house unknown to Nigel, who was parked about half a mile further down the road. Two figures emerged from the house and got into one of the cars.
What are we doing here?
Jim asked.
Look, we are on the outskirts of town, and they must come back this way, even if they have exchanged the casket by now,
replied Nigel.
Hang on, get down everyone. They're coming back up the road.
Two sets of lights passed by, and Nigel started the car and slowly reversed onto the road, startling a fox, which was about to cross as he went.
I'm sure they're making for the woods, and I reckon that's where the exchange is going to be made,
surmised Billy.
But why there?
Billy's guess was right. Not only did they make for the woods, but also to the area outside to where the group had explored some weeks previously. Nigel stopped some way behind and parked up off-road behind some trees.
We go on foot from here,
Nigel announced. Up ahead, the lights of the cars shone brightly in the moonlight. Nigel had descended unnoticed, and the woods took on an even eerier glow as the group made its way forward. Not only was there moonlight, but they could now see lights in the area away from the woods. The lights on the cars were now out, and they could see dark figures walking towards the lights beyond the woods, which eventually disappeared into the trees. As the area between them and the trees was sparse, they dropped to their knees and started crawling on all fours towards the trees. The lights grew brighter, and after a few more yards they came to a clearing in the trees. The sight that greeted them had a startling effect, and they lay transfixed. There before them was a raised platform not unlike a small stage, and standing on the stage were a man and a woman, both dressed in white robes. Assembled below them were a dozen smaller figures about 5 feet high. The two men still dressed in their security uniforms, and Pick and his family. There was also the casket standing on what looked like an altar, and a large grotesque figure hewn out of wood. All around the stage with burning torches. As the two robed figures turned towards the front of the stage, the male figure raised his hands.
Come forward, Nigel. We know you're out there. It is your destiny, my boy. Nobody will hurt you.
Nigel reeled back in horror and stood up as if he was going to jump in the air. The others did likewise.
It's my parents!
Nigel screamed as he lurched forward, finding it hard to put one foot before the other. Somehow he made it to the edge of the stage.
Father, why have you done this?
He cried.
To keep the family together.
His father replied.
Look around you, son. They are your brothers and your sisters.
Nigel looked at the white-robed figures. They all had his features, sticky-out teeth and glasses.
This is but a few, Nigel. They have come to escort you back home. They have also been educated here, like you.
What are you talking about?
Screamed Nigel.
What's home? This is my home!
No, Nigel. This is not your home. It is a temporary home. Your home is light years away on a planet called Niger Major,
replied his father. Nigel stood shaking as the reality hit him. He knew he was different, but this was beyond belief. His parents were aliens. He barely heard Billy asking what they wanted the ashes for.
Sit down, all of you, and let me tell you the story from the beginning. Throughout centuries, there have been scouting trips to Earth from people you call aliens. Indeed, you have filled up your newspapers with sightings of UFOs. That's what you call them. Well, here is your proof. Nigelian came to Earth some years ago, and in answer to your question, in some strange twist of fate, crashed into a field near to where a game of cricket had just been completed. That game was the very first match between England and Australia. They were in the process of burning the stumps when he crashed. There was no noise, and the speed at which he hit the earth created a great surge of wind. Because of their frailty and the Earth's atmosphere, he and his two companions were cremated instantly. Their remains drifted towards the cricket pitch and were scooped up by the players together with the ashes from the stumps and mingled together in the casket you see before you. I and my companions, hovering above on the second ship, witnessed these events.